A major discovery in a decades-old cold case, and it is all thanks to the efforts of the Elgin police detectives.
Last week, dive crews discovered a car in the Fox River, and it contained human remains, and those remains now identified as Karen Schepers. She had disappeared after leaving a bar back in 1983. And here on the stream in January, we talked with the Elgin Cold Case Unit detectives as they launched a new podcast called Somebody Knows Something, in an effort to generate tips about what happened to Karen.
And today, Karen's family releasing a statement saying, in part, we would like to thank the Elgin Police Department, especially Chief Lally, Detectives Andrew Houghton and Matt Vartanian, and retired officer Mike Goff for their dedication to the cold case program that brought Karen back to us after so many years. Now, we hope for continued success on each and every cold case. Miracles do happen, in quotes.
When we were here in January, joined by these detectives, we said we would love to have you back. And my goodness, here you are solving a cold case. Tonight, we're joined again by Elgin detectives Andrew Houghton and Matt Vartanian. It is just great to see you guys. Terrific work.
Thank you. Yes,
congratulations. Yeah, I mean, just incredible. What was your reaction when you found out that there was a Toyota Celica in the bottom of the Fox River?
It's hard to describe exactly the emotions you kind of go through. The diver came up through the water holding a license plate, and we kind of both immediately thought, man, I think that's her plate. And you could see the plate in reverse, kind of stamped on the back, because the front side was covered in mud, but the back side had been protected by the car. You could see an X, you could see a P, and I think we just kind of looked at each other, and we basically ran to the front of the boat to try to confirm that it was the same plate, and it was.
Yeah, incredible. And your reaction, too?
Yeah, I mean, it was an emotional time. You know, you put 6 months of work into a case, and then all of a sudden you have something that's tangible in your hand, you know, and you're just, I mean, we're still shocked by it, just how everything kind of went down.
So both of you, I've asked this question because the brother of Karen Schepers said that the father rented a plane and flew over that same pond looking. How come it took 40 years for the car to be discovered under there? And what have you learned more about why it was there so long without anybody seeing anything?
I think going back in that time period, they did a lot of aerial searches, both the Elgin Police and the Illinois State Police, looking for the vehicle. I think that was just the nature of how you did things at that time. We've progressed, obviously, a lot since then with sonar technology, divers. Chaos Divers was the group that we used. They came around about 4 years ago, so it's a fairly new group for us to get in contact with. So I think that once technology caught up to this type of search, we were able to do a much larger scale search using that technology.
Yeah. Was it a tip to the podcast that got you guys? Tell us how you got to the point, let's search this river.
Yeah, that was always one of our theories that we had. We knew at some point we wanted to search bodies of water. It took some logistics with Chaos Divers to get them, you know, scheduled. And once we knew that March was going to happen, once we had a good idea, that's when we kind of knew that was the time and we could, you know, dedicate all of our resources to do that.
And nobody thought to do a dive 10 years ago, 5 years ago?
Yeah, I mean, the case has been looked at over the years. We had nothing documented, and we felt we wanted to be as thorough as we could. You know, specifically, the family deserves that. Karen deserved that. You know, that was something that we thought was really important, you know, to make sure that we had checked that, you know, checked that box.
We had a lot of tips from people that lived in her neighborhood that said some of the routes we identified, especially a route along Duncan Avenue, which went along the river, was a known area that people in that community, at that neighborhood, would use a lot.
Yeah.
So it helped us kind of think, you know, that might be a better option for us. There were some other routes we had looked at, but we wanted to look at every route possible. But getting information from people saying there was flooding in this kind of area, these roads would flood, this is the way that we would typically go, those types of tips were things that helped us feel more confident in that tip. Or in
Did you talk to her friends from that night to find out why she went that way, how the car ended up that way? When she left, did she say she was going home? Any information as to how she actually ended up there?
Yeah, I think over our months of investigation with this, we got a good idea of what occurred that night. I mean, because 42 years ago almost, no social media, no cameras, no, you know, technology with cell phones to be able to try to pinpoint, you know, where somebody went. So a lot of that information that we received through interviews helped us to try to paint a picture of what we had. So we knew where she was confirmed that night at the bar, and we knew where she lived. So we looked at some possible paths of travel, and that we kind of built off of that.
And let's talk about that area, because the Fox River is brown.
Yep.
It's not clear.
Yeah.
It's hard to see there. And I know you're still in this investigation. We've confirmed that it is, or you've confirmed, the coroner, that it was Karen's remains. And I know you don't like to speculate. What do you think happened? Did she lose control? Do you know yet? Is that the next process here to figure out?
I think there's a couple different options. Obviously, we're still going through that process. We're having people assess the vehicle. We're having people assess the remains. We had a forensic odontologist. We had a forensic anthropologist. We had a forensic pathologist. We had the medical examiner from Kane County. All those different specialists will look at the remains. We've had people from Toyota and our crash team reviewing the vehicle, so we'll hopefully have more answers for that once the investigation wraps up with those experts. But you know, we'll know hopefully in the coming weeks, have a good idea of what we think is the best scenario.
Yeah.
Is foul play been removed, do you think, in this case? It's still obviously something that you would consider.
Yeah, we think it's important to make sure that we are being as thorough as we can and get those answers if we can for the family. And like Andrew said, those are still some options that we're looking at. You know, once we get additional reports from the coroner's office and from the different teams that looked at the vehicle, you know, hopefully we'll have a better idea, because Karen deserves it and so does her family.
Yeah, and who knows, the weather could have played a role in that part that night, but we kind of feel like we want, you all launched your podcast kind of here on our streaming show back in January. You said this was one of the first cases that you will be working on. Look what has happened in a matter of 2 months. What's next? What have you learned from this podcast that will help you go on for the next one?
First, I think we want to thank you for having us on. You were the first
you.
media that reached out to us to have us come on, you know, television to help get the story out. And I think doing media like this helped other people look at the podcast, helped other people find about our cases. So we really do appreciate that, and we appreciate you having us come back. I think learning through this process is we can get tips from the public. This is a great medium for us to use to get people to contact us. So we're going to try to continue with another season here in the future, but we still have maybe 4 or 5 more episodes to do on this case as we continue it.
Yeah, and updating it probably faster than you thought. Do you have your radar on another case after this yet?
Yeah, we've looked at several. It may be a homicide investigation. You know, we're not sure yet. With some of those types of cases, you can't share as much as we were able to share with Karen's case. This was truly a unique case because we didn't know what happened. We still are trying to figure that out. So we had no, really there was no anything that we didn't hold back. You know, we had all this information, and that we always wanted to be genuine, and we always wanted to be respectful of Karen and her family and just get all that information out there to try to get the answers for the family.
We thought about both of you and your other officers and detectives immediately when the development was there, because we know how hard you work to try and pull this off. So congratulations on a huge break in a case. I'd like to just say come back again when you have the next case. Anytime, and we can sit here and discuss whichever one you choose.
Thank you.
And then maybe we visit with you again in 3 or 4 months and we solve that case too. You solve that case, not us. So,
extraordinary.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So more than 40 years in the making. So thank you all for joining us here on the stream. Really, you know, innovative, insightful perspective. We appreciate you so much.
Thanks for having us.
Great to see you again, especially in these circumstances. By the way, you can find new episodes of Somebody Knows Something wherever you listen to podcasts. We put information on our website as well. Find it there, and as the detective said, still 4 or 5 episodes to go. So this case very much open. I anticipate we'll hear some updates from these guys again.
And it's fascinating learning new things every week, and the tips that are very helpful. So thank you again.
Great stuff.
Watch breaking news on YouTube. Subscribe to ABC7 Chicago Eyewitness News.